This is the original Esports racing game. This is iRacing.
Of the best sim racers. $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive iRacing World's Championship. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Supercup.
We started the season around the twists of Barberwood Sport Park and Mid-Ohio. Then last time, we headed to the forests of Belgium and Spa-Francorchamps. Now the championship moves on over the Atlantic once again to the city of Montreal. Located at the side of the St. Lawrence River is the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, host of round 4 of the Porsche Esports Supercup. Hello everybody, my name is Paul Smith and welcome along to today's broadcast here on the iRacing Esports Network and what promises to be some exciting racing. And don't forget, if you're new to this championship, here is how the format works.
Make Racing Series. Organized by Porsche Motorsport and iRacing, the 10-race season sees 40 of the world's top iRacers battle on internationally renowned tracks for a share of $100,000. The action starts with single-car qualifying, as each driver gets 2 laps to set the lineup for the sprint race. The top 5 qualifiers earn bonus points, with the fastest driver getting 10 points in the championship chase. For the sprint race, the top 8 qualifiers are inverted. The field then takes on a 15-minute race, with the winner receiving 50 points and the first starting spot for the feature. Second place in the sprint race scores 40 points, and third earns 35. The feature is 30 minutes long, and the points haul for the winner doubles. The driver that wins the feature race scores 100 points, the biggest number of the weekend. Same goes for second and third place, which double to 80 and 70 points respectively. That means a perfect weekend is worth 160 points, while last place finishes in both the sprint and the feature earn only 1 apiece. In other words, the championship can turn on its head on any given weekend at any time.
There you have it. That's the format of this series. We've had 3 races to really get used to how this works, and well, it certainly has produced some exciting, thrilling racing. Joining me in the commentary booth here today is Randy Cheneth, and Randy, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, it's a different track to what we've had so far in this series. Very tight with the walls in at the side of the track.
Yeah, indeed. Hello, everybody, and it's going to be a great show, but you're right. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch these Porsche Cup cars work their way around the tight Montreal circuit. Of course, you have the long back straightaway, which should provide some nice slipstreaming opportunities, but a handful of difficult places to work with around this place, Paul. And, of course, the big talking point, the number of British accents in the broadcast booth hits an all-time low here for round 4.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, Will Vincent and Conor Maddock not available here today, but looking at the conditions there, partly cloudy, 21 degrees Celsius air temperature, that's 71 Fahrenheit. for those of you in the States, and it's going to be favourable for these drivers. These drivers will like these conditions with the cooler track temperature. That really will help them with their qualifying times, and qualifying will be coming up in about 4.5 minutes time. But let's have a look at the championship standings then here as we go into round number 4 of this series. And there you go, there's a top 10 for you there. Joshua Rogers 108 points clear at the top of the standings ahead of Patrick Holtzman, who did fantastic there last time out at Spa, finishing second. The winner from Spa's feature race, Tommy Østgaard, is in third place with Sebastian Job fourth. Mitchell de Jong was one of the championship favourites going into this one, 121 points behind his Commander stablemate. Jeremy Fluke been really solid in this series and seems to have found himself a good run in this series. Maximilian Benecke, Martin Kronke, of course, won out at Mid-Ohio. Jared Phil-Sell and Jeremy Bootloop rounds out your top 10 standings. But as was pointed out in that video that we just saw, a possible 160 points available if you get a clean sweep here today, Randy.
You're right, and anything can flip-flop because of that any given week in this championship, and we're coming towards the end of this practice session in the next couple of minutes. So all of those gaps could very much change, before we get to that next race out at Montreal. Could potentially even see a new championship leader when we head to that next race, still staying here in the beautiful country of Canada. But you're right, the championship is tight, and really I think the Coanda SimSport domination is a big talking point there, Paul, because 5 of them inside of the top 10 in points. They've been dominating the other sports car world championship we have as well. That's a team that's really just on a roll as a whole at the moment.
Yeah, they really have seemed to have hit the mark. But of course, this series, it's not so much about the teams. All these individuals are going out for this prize fund, $100,000 prize fund in total. And of course, the winner of the feature race gets to be $1,000 better off. So there's a lot at stake in this series, as we've seen in the first 3 rounds. But the characteristics of this track, where are the points that people are going to be able to gain positions or to maybe get one over their competitors around this circuit, Gilles Villeneuve?
Well, it's a tight circuit, as we said. Turn 1, I think, always an opportunity, the mostly 90-degree left-hander. Then really from there, you pretty much have half the lap that I think you're kind of stuck single file. Maybe a couple places you could shove it up the inside. Some aggressive moves at the hairpin I think are going to be likely today. Wouldn't be surprised to see an incident there. And of course, like we said, the long back straightaway, you have a very, very long run in towards the Champions Chicane. And of course, the famous Wall of Champions on the exit there. I suspect some moves to happen there into the hard braking zone, into that chicane, Paul. And I would not be surprised if we don't see a few cars in that wall at some point today.
Now, it's worth pointing out every round of the series, stewards have a look at post-race any incidents that were involved last time out. A number of drivers falling foul of the stewards. Only 2 drivers actually on sort of like the bubble, basically, of getting an in-race penalty on 12 points. So really everybody seems to have calmed down and felt their way into the series here, Randy, and it's good to see that the driving standards after those first couple of rounds around those twisty circuits really has improved, and these drivers, as they learn how to drive around each other.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and of course getting used to the format as well. I mean, even used to these cars, a lot of these drivers maybe not running this car as seriously before this season and this World Championship. So for them, probably a bit of a learning curve there. And of course with the format as well, an entirely new system with the heat race system being used in the invert. Maybe a little bit of growing pains there. I wouldn't be surprised, though, due to the tight confines of Montreal, much like we see every season when the Formula One calendar rolls through here. This is always a track that generates a bit of controversy and is generally the most well-liked Formula One Grand Prix all year. And I think we're going to see that as well with these Porsche Cup cars. I'm expecting some drama from these guys here today due to the tight confines here at Montreal.
Well, as we are heading on towards qualifying, of course, an 8-minute qualifying session, you get 2 hot laps to be able to set your qualifying position. Of course, the top 5, as it was mentioned on that video, get bonus points for their qualifying positions. And of course, the top 8 then gets inverted for the grid of race 1. So you can't really, with this series, we've seen it all along, you cannot afford to try and play the games of getting that 8th place in qualifying, because it's just going to bite you, is that one. But the practice session and warm-up has come to an end, so these drivers now will be heading out of pit road for the start of qualifying. 8 minutes to be able to set their lap times in, and when you're talking about 1.5 minute lap, they've got a little bit of time to play with here, Randy. But with it only being 2 laps, if they make a mistake on 1 lap, on the first lap, it's all pressure on for the second.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big talking point, especially around here, isn't it? I feel like this track's just full of talking points. But the other thing that also makes this place really difficult for qualifying as well, Paul, compared to some of the other tracks, is, of course, the incident system we have with iRacing. You scrape one of these walls and get a 0x, it invalidates your qualifying lap, and there's a couple places around this place you're right up against the wall looking for every single second you can get. So it's not just the typical 1x's you're sort of looking at it, trying to avoid around this place. You need to keep that car off the wall, not rub the mirror off of it before you get into the first heat race of the day. You really need to keep it clean and not invalidate that first lap, or even the nightmare if you end up with sort of a super safe banker opening lap and then your second lap really send it. You could find yourself well down the order because you pushed a little bit too hard that second go round.
On the screen then, Joshua Rogers, championship leader, on his out lap here. He'll be trying to make sure that he gets a feel of the car, make sure it feels okay underneath him before he really gets the hammer down and starts those hot laps. But Sebastian Job, well, he's already at the final chicane. It's important to get a good launch out of that chicane to head on down the start finish straight to carry as much speed into the start of your qualifying lap. But here we go then, we're on board with him then into the first corner. Tricky left-hander because you've got to be braking then for this really slow right-hand hairpin. Get on the power nice and early, don't let it go too far out to the left there as you head on towards turn 3 and 4. The first chicane on the track here, and it's the first time that you really get close to that wall there. He's left a little bit of room there. It's a tricky corner as this right-hander, and immediately he touches the wall. That will invalidate his lap here, Randy, and it's also caused a bit of damage that he's got to carry into the second flying lap.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. You have to be a little bit safe around this place and really respect those walls. And if you don't do that, you're going to see that exact incident right there. So kind of a nightmare situation for Sebastian. This opening sort of lap for him is pretty much irrelevant other than the fact that he's gotten the damage. Now, how is that going to affect his second lap? We have another car out there. That's current championship points leader Josh Rogers, who was quickest in the practice by 1/10 of a second over the man we were just watching, the 13 of Sebastian Job. So Josh Rogers is going to work his way through the same bit of racetrack, and I think he may have found the wall as well.
Well, we'll have to see if he does carry on or not, but it does look like it. A little bit of damage to the front right there. So these drivers, they're finding that it's easy to make mistakes here. Sebastian Job is going to be starting his second lap. Here's another driver, another Red Bull Esports driver, and that is Patrick Holtzman, second place in the championship, and so far he's managed to keep it out the walls. We want to get that car out to the right hand side there for this second chicane. Use as much curb on the left there over the right then and get it out to the wall. Once again, the first of the lap times are coming up on the left hand side of your screen. Graham Carroll, fantastic lap, a 34.8. Here comes David Williams now. He's going to head on over across the line. I do believe the second lap may be the one that people really push and try and get one in. And David Williams, 5th place there with that one, 4/10 of a second off of Graham Carroll's time. The Scotsman in the lead at the moment, provisionally on pole position for this one. But drivers now, they're starting the second laps here, and well, those that have made mistakes are really having to try and make up for it, as here come Antoine Higelin across the line, 38.6. So that's a bit of a banker lap. He's going to really go for it on this one here, Andy.
Yeah, you're right, and I think you're absolutely
Rogers pole, by the way. Rogers going in pole, 2/10 faster.
Yeah, so I don't think that's any surprise there that that 92 car is currently quickest, and I think after putting that lap time in, he's likely going to send it a little bit harder this second trip around the racetrack. So everyone or at least half the field getting some laps in. Still a handful of cars that have not put on their first opening qualifying laps and are having to go to the second one. And the moments are starting to tick down here in this qualifying. Sebastian Job comes off that final corner for his second time. What is this one going to come through? His last attempt. I think this isn't going to be a great lap. 34.8, going to put him up to about third.
A second place for him then in the end, beat his teammate by 0.004 of a second. Here come the other times now. Kevin Ellis Jr. for Apex Racing Team, the British driver, coming across the line here. What lap time can he do? A 38.6. That's not a good lap time. He's going to have to try, and if he's got the laps available, he's going to have to try and improve on that one. As Patrick Holtzman, no time set so far. He's heading on down towards the hairpin. Important to get your braking right in that one. So easy to lock up an inside wheel on there as we go now down through the high speed section now, as they just take this little gradual right kink through onto this back straightaway, heading in towards the chicane now for the final time. And again, important to get your braking right, head into the chicane, hit the brakes hard, down the gears, launch the car over the chicane there. It's important to be able to use as much of that curb as possible. Holtzman keeping it more to the right hand side. What can he do here? And the answer is it's a 17th for Patrick Holtzman, second place in the championship, and he's down there in 17th. That's incredible, Randy.
Yeah, he's not going to like that whatsoever to be, that much mid-pack here in that phase of the race. Still have the 98 car on track, though, of Kevin Ellis Jr. He's coming towards the end of the lap. Sebastian Dunkel as well, who are currently taking a look at as they work down the back straightaway and in towards the chicane once again. So Dunkel, let's see, is he going to be as flamboyant over the curves? Maybe not quite as much, but he's going to come through on his lap time here. And let's see what the driver, the number 84 car, can do. Currently sits 25th, and he'll go through to a 35.611. It will not improve on that lap. Will Sebastian Dunkel. Kevin Ellis Jr. comes through, by the way, and he's going to slot in behind the 49 of Jamie Fluke, but just ahead of the 66 of Hoochie.
And here comes Nils Kirsch then across the line for the German. Well, that is 11th place for him then on the grid. Just two drivers who haven't set a lap time, and they're running out of time here. One of which, Antoine Hijlar, has actually abandoned his run. So it's Lauren Heinrich here, who's the final driver to try and set a lap time. 44 seconds, he should get the end of this lap as long as he's not invalidated it in any way. But worth pointing out here, just to show how close this field is, first to 29th, covered by 1 second here. That is absolutely incredible. But here, let's have a look at this now. Heinrich onto the brakes once again. How will he take the chicane? Plenty of curb on the right, not so much on the left because you don't want it to come right, and he's banded in it. So no time for Lauren Heinrich there. And really, these drivers now, they're out of time here to set any laps. So we'll be able to, in just a few seconds, take you through how they line up for race number 1 here. But that was a rip-roaring qualifying there. Joshua Rogers was the quickest driver then, so he gets 10 points towards his championship again. Sebastian Job in second with Graham Carroll third. Enzo Benito, great to see him back in 4th place with Maximilian Beneke in 5th place. That's in the qualifying results, of course. Jack Sedgwick 6th with Mitchell Dion 7th. Martin Kroenke is 8th place, so therefore he will be on pole position for this race. You can see how that top 8 has been inverted there as we run on through that one. So it's Kroenke, De Jong, Sedgwick, and then the rest of your field there, Beneke, Benito, Carroll, Job, Rogers. They're the fastest guys. Then the rest of the field are as they qualify. Tommy Østgaard, race winner last time, in 9th place with Jeremy Boothloop in 10th. Nils Kirsch, 11th with Jamie Fluke. And then the rest of your field is going through your screen here. But final thoughts then, Randy. A 15-minute sprint race here for the first one. What are your expectations?
15-minute race, an invert in hand. I think we're probably going to see some drama here, especially going towards turn 1. Very tight. The first trip through 3 and 4, the first chicane, always potentially a troublesome spot as well. Then into the hairpin, you could see some brave moves, and then into the champion's chicane at the end of the lap for, I think, the opening lap. Expect some moves there as well. But it's going to be an exciting first lap and an exciting 15 minutes, I think, here of race number 1 for today.
Well, it's going to really be difficult to keep up with everything that happens in this one, but welcome along everyone. This should be a bit of a fun race for this first one of the day. With just a few seconds counted down towards the final few guys getting onto the grid, and then we'll be all set for this sprint race here in this first Porsche Esports Supercup Round 4 race. Engine revs rise, waiting for the green light. Green light, and away they go then, and it's a good start from the front. Matt Kroenke out into the lead here early on, down into the first chicane. This is where you can potentially have incidents as we go through the hairpin for the first time as well. Everybody's behaving so far, that's good to see as we head on through down into the chicane now. Go through the right and the left, and we've seen a little bit of too wide action going through there, but everybody keeping it out the walls and keeping it on the straight and narrow so far, and this is what we like to see. Really close action as two cars, the Jack Sedgwick is battling it out then to go through that chicane, and he's been able to make the place on his teammate Enzo Benito, and here comes Graham Carroll to try and get at Enzo as well onto the brakes underneath the bridge, and Graham's just having to fall in behind Enzo there, but out the chicane then heading towards the hairpin, and this is a really good place to get a way of getting positions. Onto the brakes hard, easy to lock up, easy to make a mistake, and Sebastian Job trying to get a move on his teammate there. So the two Brits going side by side as they're heading on to the back straight now. Try and get the slipstream here. Enzo Benito in front of them's weaving, he's trying to get some heat in his tyres, and the leader is trying to keep out of the slipstream, try to keep everyone behind him as we head on into the chicane for the first time then on the brakes. Launch the car over that first curb, just kiss the left curb, and away we go. Everybody's staying out of the wall of champions so far, so that's good to see. Nice clean first lap for us there, Randy, as the two leaders, De Jong and Kroenke, well, there you go, they're battling it out at the front.
Yeah, Mitchell, a great
we've got a
opening
big
move.
crash at the back, actually. Sorry, David Navakovsky is involved in that. It's a huge one, is that? There's 4 cars involved in that one with others as well. I think Antoine Hichler was another involved in that one with Moritz Lerner. We'll have a replay of this, but suddenly, 3 into 1, Randy, does not go.
No, it definitely doesn't, and unfortunately 2 of the team cars, the Williams cars, ended up there. I'm really not sure what that HPP car was thinking of. Ilka Hapala, he was fully on the right-hand side of the track and then just trying to shut the door on the left-hand side. I think that's really over-aggressive to be coming out here on the second lap of really the first race of the day, but regardless, out of the head of the field is Martin Kroenke cycled into second. Mitchell de Jong took the race lead at the start of that second lap. Beneke settled into third, Sedgwick in fourth, and Benito, after an exciting opening lap and attempting a couple aggressive moves, cycles back to where he started in fifth. But for the bulk of that opening lap, we were really clean up until they got to the front straightaway, which is the last place I really expected there to be an incident.
Yeah, that really was completely caught us off guard, is that one. But as the leaders, look at that queue of Porsches heading down towards the final chicane then. Once again, the leader clipped that curb on the left-hand side. Almost sent the car over there. He hit it that hard, but wow, he is able to keep it out the wall across the line then. So as it stands at the moment, Mitchell de Jong in the lead here with Kroenke second, Maximilian Beneke in third place ahead of Jack Sedgwick, Enzo Benito fifth ahead of the two Red Bull drivers of Graham Carroll, Sebastian Job, with Joshua Rogers, Jeremy Butloop and Jamie Fluke rounding out the top 10 in this one. And now these drivers at the front, they'll be trying to settle into a rhythm, but at the same point they'll also want to be able to try and make some gaps if they're at the front, or try and make some moves if you're in that mid-pack there, Andy.
Yeah, that's definitely the phase of the game right now, especially with a 15-minute race. I mean, we already have the first third of this race pretty much done and over with, 4 minutes in. So for some of these guys, it's you only have to settling in for another handful of laps here for this opening go, and it's a difficult part of the racetrack to really make moves, because we talked about that long back straightaway, Paul, but of course with these cars, while they have a relatively good-sized rear wing on the back, they really don't generate that much of a wake or that much drag whatsoever, so they don't really slipstream up as nicely as some of the maybe higher downforce cars you might typically see run around this place. The higher downforce, higher performance GT cars or even the open wheelers. So the slipstream is really minimal as they work down the back straight and in towards the Champions chicane, which is going to make passing at the end of the straight difficult. And well, in some ways, if you're at the head of a pack, is actually going to do well to take a bit of the pressure off.
Alexander Thebe, we're looking at right now, into the chicane, launching it up over the curbs. You can see those cars bouncing up over the curbs. That's one of the benefits of running this Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, is that you can abuse those curbs. But if you hit it wrong into that one, as we've got to move behind there with Thebe, with Gilles, making the moves then up into 23rd. That was ahead of Sebastian Dunkel, I believe it was. But yeah, these cars, they can really abuse those curbs, and that gives them the opportunity to make those moves. As Kemal Franchik up behind these two in 24th. He's at the head of a little gaggle of cars there as they're heading into that second chicane. But battling in your mid-pack, and Bobby Zelensky, he's trying to make his way through, and he's stuck behind in 27th behind Sebastian Dunkel.
Yeah, Bobby, he's coming off a pretty rough week from what he ran earlier this week at Charlotte in the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series. Was out at the head of that field and suffered technical difficulties. Now he's sort of buried in the mid-pack. Car slow on the left-hand side, I think likely serving a slowdown penalty. Yeah. I will say, keep an eye on this fight for second, because Max Benecke just a moment ago was all over the back of Martin Kroenke. Martin's opened the gap up just a little bit, but Max was giving him the flashing headlights. So that Pure Racing team number 11 may be keen on making a move here on one of the dominant champions in the recent years on the iRacing service here, and not very far from now.
Benecke really hasn't had the best of runs so far in this series, and well, this is a really good start to this sprint race for him. Of course, remember that the grid is ordered for the feature race from the results of this one. So on the one hand, you do want to make those moves and get as many championship points as possible, but at the same point, you don't want to risk losing everything and ruining your feature race here, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, yeah, starting one extra spot can be really big, and the extra little bit of points is going to be important as well, but you don't want to jeopardize that second race and potentially essentially wipe out your entire day of racing, just trying to make up, maybe one spot, just a couple of points.
Sebastian Job has had an incident at the second chicane. He's falling down the order. He's trying to keep out of everyone's way. What on earth has happened here for Sebastian? Oh dear, it's just not going his way at all. He's got major damage to his car.
Championship leader involved in that one as well, Joshua Rogers.
So here we go, replay up on screen. Rogers down the inside, he sends it. Oh, there's a little quarter panel there. Oh, big incident for Job there. That's why he's got the suspension damage that he has. But Rogers, I don't think he had enough alongside to make that move work.
I think you're right. That was pretty late in the sort of phase of the corner, but at the same time, Sebastian kind of opened that up a little bit awkwardly, and Josh, it was just on the track out point. That might be a little bit late. That one's really tough to call. But regardless, it's the Red Bull driver. What do we have?
3 wide down the straight. Well, Jamie Fluke has been able to get ahead, but they went 2 wide through the chicane there. And that was Boot Loop and Fluke. And, well, Tommy Østgaard now is trying to make the most of this one. Niels Koch will run behind these two here. If he can sneak in down the inside here, try and take advantage of that, he can maybe make a move. But no, just not quite able to get on the power here. But wow, big gaggle all of a sudden of cars together, all battling it out for that top 10. And Jamie Fluke has got 7th place at the moment. 3.5 seconds between Fluke and Graham Carroll in 6th. So really, you would have to say that these drivers now just fighting for the bottom end of the top 10 here, as Patrick Holtzman has had an incident. That's 2nd place in the championship. So championship contenders are getting involved in incidents, and it's at that second chicane again.
Oh, and this move I think was even later from the 47 car of Alejandro Sanchez. Very, very similar incident. coming out this time, but in the same exact result. And what's really odd to me, Paul, is normally you would see drivers get this aggressive at the start of the race. I'm surprised that it's been 6 or 7 laps getting into this. Normally this is sort of the point in the race that drivers are going to be at their calmest and not really do anything too crazy. I'm surprised we didn't see this aggression in, lap 2, lap 3, lap 4, rather than lap 6, lap 7, which is what we're about to be working on with only about 5 minutes left to go in this thing. But still, another incident there at that second chicane in as many laps.
I don't want to second guess what the stewards are going to do, but I think I know what's going to happen with the result of that one. That was quite a late move, and well, down the start and finish straight, David Williams involved in this battle, Kevin Ellis Jr. The two Brits side by side as they're heading into that first complex of corners into the hairpin, and Williams is out wide, and look who's there, Alejandro Sanchez, the man with a big question mark about that move just a lap ago into the chicane, and Alejandro is going to keep it out there. Hopefully no contact made, no nothing yet, but they've got to go through a right-hander now. That's where Sanchez has an advantage. It's Gregor Hutu, Marti Piatella involved in this one as well. They're all going side by side as well. It's 2 by 2 here through the second chicane, out the corner, and who's going to get the advantage? Well, Sanchez has just got the nose ahead for the time being. Hutu's managed to stay ahead of Piatella, and also Thomas Tahala is getting involved as well. Dive down the inside, and I think that might be a corner cut potentially. Oh, there's a slight bit of contact, a little bit of rubbing, but they've all kept it alive here. And look at this down the middle. Who is that? That was the 74 car of Ricardo Castroledo. Ever the opportunist trying to make the most of that one, and they're going 3 wide on the exit of the hairpin here, Randy.
Marty's definitely being pretty aggressive. He forced that 107 car off onto the grass as they're 3 abreast behind. It's the 74 of Castroledo with Paschalis Gergis and Alexander Thieb as they work down the back straightaway, 3 abreast into that final chicane. They're going to cycle it out 2 wide and eventually get about single file, but a bit of a late move there from the Koena driver, and they'll just about make it work as Marcus Jensen is sitting there watching all of this with a queue of cars behind him. So aggressive driving as Gregor, it seems like, has gotten himself a slow down.
Yeah, Maxwell Beneke, by the way, is still keeping the pressure on at the front, but we'll keep an eye on this battle here, this battle pack. It's great racing. How they all didn't end up with one big wreck, I do not know, but this shows why they are some of the best drivers in sim racing today. As well, down the inside goes the driver, and I'm trying to see who that was on my screen. Coming up on the timing screen, but anyway, I do believe there's Sebastian Dunkel involved in this old gaggle as well, and he's coming under pressure from Bobby Zelensky. Zelensky's still not able to get ahead of Dunkel, and just behind them Yao Vaz. That was it, my timing screen's finally updated. It was Yao Vaz and Gregor Hutu now trying to make the move on Yao. Here we go then.
We're still close.
Yep. Oh, tell you what, Tommy Osgard was slightly slow out the hairpin, I noticed on the timing screen there, Randy, but staying ahead for the time being.
Yeah, he definitely is. So, that's what we're seeing here. The draft not playing nearly as much of a sort of effect as we expected. Josh Rogers, by the way, has managed to settle sort of into 10th place after that incident. Actually maybe up a couple spots through this lap. So maybe a couple good moves coming in from the Australian. Jeremy Bootley maybe moving himself up as well. But Max is being very patient here in these final closing minutes. 2 laps to go in this race here, Paul. And, we've seen a bunch of aggression. Max is known for being one of the more aggressive drivers on the sim. We've seen him make a lot of brave moves in the past here on RaceSpot TV, but I think he's done very well in this situation, pressuring Martin for this second spot late in this race. We haven't seen him really risk anything too crazy, but he might take a peek at the inside here, and I think the move is on for the 11.
Yeah, he's trying, and he's going to get on the power earlier on the outside line there. That's going to be brave, and it's worked for him. And here comes Enzo Benito now as well. No, not that's Jack Sedgwick, his teammate, Benito's teammate. Round the outside then. And over the curb goes Jack. He's really known as an aggressive driver. Almost a contact between him and Kroenke. And Jack, he wants that podium position as we're heading on the penultimate lap at the moment. Richard de Jong, 2.1 seconds in the lead. We've barely mentioned him all race here. But, well, here comes Cedric then, putting the pressure on Martin Kroenke. down the back straightaway here. He is quite tight in on the gearbox and the engine of that car in front, and so he will be gaining ever so slightly, but not that much really. He's just poking his nose out, letting him know that he is there through the final chicane, and different lines taken between the two of them, and they're keeping it as they were as they come across the line for the start of the final lap, Randy. But those two, I think it's just settled down just that little bit. It's more the action further back, because David Williams is going side by side further back here.
Yeah, he was side by side with Alejandro Sanchez through the final chicane. Now into turn one, he's going to be side by side again. The 107 of Timo Sahayta up the inside of the 96 and the 81. Can't quite get that move done though. He'll be strung out on the outside for turn two. In towards turn three, Marty Piatella tries to get involved, but just doesn't get the drive off the corner, and he'll single file it out as they head in towards turn three.
There's been side-by-side action as well. Jamie Flug and Jeremy Bootloop, and now Josh Rogers trying to gain enough of position on this final lap. They run it out towards the wall once again as they go on towards the bridge here. It's a tricky braking zone, very bumpy on the brakes, and Fluke managing to stay ahead of Rogers for the time being as they go through that chicane there for the final time in this sprint race here in the Porsche Esports Supercup. And I tell you what, it has been an absolutely thrilling race, all apart from one man who's just had a nice Saturday drive here out at the front, Mitchell de Jong, the American. Well, he's going to be liking this. Nobody in front of him at all as he heads into the braking zone for the final time. Can still make a mistake here if he's not careful, but he is careful. He takes it gingerly, and it's going to be a win in the feature race of round 4 of the Porsche Esports Supercup for Mitchell de Jong across the line. Brilliant stuff from Mitchell to take the win there. The rest of the field coming through, and well, Jeremy Butler's going to hang on to that 7th place ahead of Jamie Fluke. There's more close back action behind as well. Drivers coming across the line. Tahala not able to get ahead of David Williams. Alejandro Sanchez 13th in the end of that race. But wow, what an action-packed race. Incident and drama involved in that one as well, Randy. But that was thrilling.
Yeah, that was an exciting one. If that's any indicator from what we're going to see from this half-hour feature race, we're going to be in for a very, very nice show here to kick off this Memorial Day weekend, biggest weekend in motor racing, in all of motor racing, as we take a peek at the race results from race 1.
Yes, and Mitchell de Jong with the win, 1.9 seconds ahead of Maximilian Benecke in 2nd place. It's a German 2nd and 3rd with Martin Kronke in 3rd. Jack Sedgwick unable to get that 3rd place away, so 4th place for him. Graham Carroll 5th with Enzo Benito rounding out the top 6, and then you saw that battle. Jeremy Bootloop, Jamie Fluke, Josh Rogers and Tommy Erskard all rounding out the top 10 there. Then outside the top 10, Nils Koch, Kevin Ellis Jr. we saw battling throughout that race. Alejandro Sanchez, it's going to be a big question mark over his race 1 in 13th. David Williams, Thomas Tahala, Marty Piatella, Ricardo Castroledo, Pash Georges, Alexander Thiebe, Marcus Jensen. They were all together across the line there for your top 20. Scroll on down, still it was pretty close together. Sebastian Dunkel, Bobby Zelensky wasn't able to get past Dunkel in the end there, and with Yavaz in 23rd. Gregor Hutu dropped down to 24th in the end of that one. Kamal Franchak in 25th. Moritz Lerner and Dion Burgess, the last of the runners, in 26th and 27th. And then all these drivers retired from the race. Patrick Holtzman 2nd in the championship going into this round. Out. Sebastian Job, another championship contender, out. And the rest of them, as we look through, Ilka Harpala, Marin Cholak, Lauren Heinrich and David Navakovsky all caught up, those three, in that instant on the start and finish line at the end of the first race. But Randy, I could take a breath now as the drivers get a little bit of practice in before the feature race. What did you make of that? Your first time on the broadcast, that was great.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to watch. It was definitely a good show. I definitely think the talking point of that opening race was probably the 27 of Patrick Holtzman getting into that incident, 2nd place in the points. And we talked about the fact that, you know, the amount of points you can rein in one of these races. Of course, 160 up on offer, the maximum for a win, of course, in both races, and a pole in qualifying is the maximum point haul you can get. Holtzman sort of does the inverse of that. Qualified decently, you know, mid-pack, was doing well to start moving his way up through the field, and then caught up in an incident and finishes well down the order. If he does not have a good feature race here, he'll be starting 28th. You know, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. We talk about him outside of the top 10 going into the next race at Mosport.
Well, this is it, and with Mosport coming up next, another Canadian track, and it's another tricky track as well as this one. Different features, of course, very undulating as Mosport, but we've got the feature race coming up here, so what are the keys to the feature race then? Because it's not so much of a panic in this feature race. 30 minutes for them to make any positions up, Randy.
I think the keys are just to be patient around this place. You know, it's a very, very tight circuit. We saw a number of people get into the wall and saw a number of people really hamper their progression through this race, trying to be over-aggressive. You think about what we saw with Joshua Rogers, think about the incident we saw with Alejandro Sanchez. A couple of them, yeah, maybe they picked up a spot here or there, but, you know, considering the fact you have sort of steward reviews post-race, you don't want to impact your following races trying to just pick up one spot here or there in these races. So I think you need to be patient. Don't be over aggressive, especially because, you know, obviously not only do you find yourself potentially seeing potential steward reviews going into the next rounds, but of course as well, you don't want to throw something up here, Paul, and then find yourself in the wall and pretty much done and dusted here today as well.
Yeah, and another key as well with the aggression as well was the number of drivers that we saw picking up slowdown penalties as well in the chicanes, and that really, it did show how, I mean, you look at Gregor Hurto, he picked up a slowdown penalty whilst battling in that final chicane, and it dropped him right down the order, so it's crucial not to pick those up as well.
Yeah, exactly. The slowdowns can really hurt around this place, especially as tight and contested as the racing is around here. Really quick lap, only a minute and a half, and because of that, the entire field is right on top of one another. When you get a big train of cars coming, you know, if you cut one of those chicanes a little bit, you have to slow down, you know, serve a slowdown. There's 6, 7, 8, 9 cars going right past you.
Well, these drivers will be getting all set for the feature race here. And the start will be crucial for these drivers. We kind of predicted in the commentary booth where the instance would be on the first lap, and quite honest, we didn't say the start and finish line at the end of lap 1 was going to be where it happened, but it did in that first race. Hopefully we can have a clean start to the second race here. And, well, as we all head on over to this one, we will be able to bring you the starting grid in just a second once the graphics catch up with us here, and let's take a look then at your starting grid for this feature race. Of course, it is in the order that they finished that first race. So Mitchell de Jong and Paul, Maximilian Benecke in second, Mike Cronke rounding out the top 3 with Jack Sedgwick fourth. As we scroll through, Graham Carroll, Enzo Benito, Jeremy Bootloop, Jamie Fluke, we saw how those guys were all battling in that first race earlier on. And rest of your field still. Joshua Rogers, it's going to be crucial for him to just try and get some good solid points here today. Tommy Osgaard, another one who wants to try and get some places. Nils Koch, Kevin Ellis Jr. Alejandro Sanchez, 13th, with David Williams 14th. Thomas Tahala and the rest of your field going through, but we're getting set for the start of this one there. Final drivers stepping up onto the grid. So, the lights will be ready, the revs rise, and we're all set for the feature race here in the Porsche Esports Supercup. Away we go, and it is a good start from Mitchell de Jong on pole position. Across the line they go. Straight away, Benecke getting defensive from Martin Cronke as they head into the first chicane, or the first corner, should I say. Everyone side by side, able to just work their way through that first corner. Now as they head into the first chicane, a little bit of too wide action. That's 44 into Benito, gets rear-ended, and that was Jamie Fluke into the back of him. Jeremy Bootloop involved in that one as well. Huge instant for Enzo Benito. Jeremy Bootloop's going to have a massive slowdown penalty that he's going to have to serve, but that's race over for Enzo Benito right there. We'll see how we get on for the rest of this opening lap here. We've still got too wide action further down as well. Drivers trying to sort themselves out, and another slowdown penalty for somebody further down in your order. And drivers are just finding it really difficult on this opening lap here in this feature race, as moves being made throughout your field. And 28 car there trying to get in line with the 84, and that's Sebastian Dunkel. Thomas Østgaard is there as well. Dunkel gets a slow down penalty into the hairpin. 3 wide, there's more contact with the 66. Gregor Hutu is involved in that one. And there's just all trying to calm down, everyone. You've got plenty of time in this one. And, well, we're going 3 wide down the back straightaway here. Bobby Zelensky. We've also got Sander Thebe, I believe, involved in that one. Marcus Jensen, Tommy Østgaard, sorry, are the other 2 involved in that one. They sort themselves out into the chicane for the first time here. Through there they go. And a good exit for Marcus Jensen. We've got a spinner in the background there as well, but he doesn't touch the walls. That's Ilkka Harpala making that mistake as one of the Red Bull cars.
Oh, another car in the background as well. Contact with Yalvaz and Moritz Lohner into turn 1.
Yeah, so plenty of incidents in this opening lap here, in the opening of this race here, Randy. But, well, everybody's just keen to make positions, it seems.
Yeah, and of course that big opening mistake coming from the 49 of Jamie Fluke going to be the talking point at the start of this race. I think he just missed his braking point, and he sort of panicked, I think, when he did that, and he locked up the rear tires. And once he did that, there wasn't really much he could do, to be honest. Once you've already messed up your corner entry that much and the car steps out on you, you're always going to get in that car ahead of you. So an unfortunate mistake, but I'll tell you right now, it was a good start for the 24 of Mitchell de Jong, but the 11 of Max Benecke, it looks pacier at the moment and is keeping that gap very, very tight as they come out of the hairpin and down the back straightaway. It's a slightly better exit for Mitchell, but Max is all over that 24 car.
We'll look at the replay then of what's happened here for Enzo Benito. And it's down into the second chicane. So here you look at Fluke, the car just seems to lose control at the back a little bit. Maybe he locked up his brakes on the gear shift down the gears for Fluke there. We'll have another look at this one for Benito from a different camera angle. But here we go, on the brakes, Fluke just, loses the back end a little bit. And unluckily for Enzo, ends up on his roof in the tyre wall there. But back to live action here, and you can see this battle for the lead, should I say. Max Benecke trying his best to hound Mitchell de Jong in this one here, Andy.
And he's still tucked nicely up under the rear wing, but not a great for opening chicane for Max. Did he maybe collect a slowdown or just not get the run he needed? I'm not sure, but it's gone from a 1/10 of a second gap out to nearly a full second. And you're right. So he's going to go from second, probably cycling in third at best here.
Yeah, it's Jack Cedric side by side with Benecke then. Here's a look from Graham Carroll. He's trying to take advantage of this as well. Benecke's now back up to speed here as they head under the bridge in the braking zone through the right-hander and then the left at the third chicane. And these drivers are trying their best to keep out of trouble, but at the same point try to gain positions here. And I tell you what, Mitchell de Jong will be laughing all the way to the bank with that one, because he's now got a second and a half gap at the lead. But look at how close that is there, and that is, I believe, Rogers and Graham Carroll that we're looking at here as they go down the back straightaway here. Bit of damage on the front of Rogers' car there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We also have word that the 27, second place in points, has called it a day here, involved in one of those big incidents, I think, was the 27 car taking a peek. Oh, this actually came down as the second chicane, with an incident with the Altus Esports car of, I believe it was Marin Kolak. Big incident with the Red Bull car of Patrick Holtzman, and second place in points. Holtzman was doing well, comes into that, going to come out of here probably outside of the top 10 in points, after he's basically going to get more or less a goose egg here in the feature race.
It was on lap 1 was that incident for Holtzman. And so that's really been a disaster for him. We'll hopefully try and bring you a look at that one there. But not the best day in the office for him today. And he's had a bit of a nightmare, Randy, for this one. And we've seen a number of championship contenders just getting involved in incidents in this race.
Well, I mean, it's just the format, isn't it? Of course, we talk about Porsche Cup racing, Paul, and I know one of the reasons we have you work in the broadcast is this. We always knew with these, quick races and this style of car, it was going to be a bit of touring car action, and that's exactly what we've gotten today. It's looked like some classic touring car coming out of the UK or Europe with the sort of pushing and shoving we've gotten around this tight Canadian circuit.
Yeah, it is. As it was Marin Kolak who'd had a bit of a incident going into
He's a
that
touring
corner.
car driver,
Yeah.
if I recall correctly.
Yeah, he was a world touring car driver. That's absolutely right. We're back to live action because Jack Sedgwick now is having a really good run of it here today in this event. He's in third place at the moment, and the Englishman trying to make moves on second place driver, which is Martin Kroenke. So it's England versus Germany at the front here. And Max Benecke, the other German, right behind, putting the pressure on Sedgwick. And that's going to be a difficult position for Jack to be in, because he's going to have to attack, but at the same point defend.
Exactly. I mean, it's some ways it's almost more difficult being in that second spot in line, because when you're at the head of the line, well, all you only have to focus on is your mirrors. You can sort of, to a certain extent, not worry about what's happening out in front of you. You can kind of brake where you want to brake, turn in where you want to turn in. When you're Jack Sedgwick, that 5 car of Martin Kroenke, if you get close to him, one, you may think about even making a move, but if you can't make a move, you may have to check up just that little bit early so you don't, potentially cause an incident, because, of course, drivers may have slightly different braking points depending on what they're doing with the car, and, there are some slight setup options here on this car. What do you have?
Tommy Østgaard has had an incident at the second chicane, and that is, I believe, with the 18 car of Antoine Higelin. And that's a move from Higelin going into that second chicane, so we'll catch it here. So that's the first chicane now as you run through the right-hander here. And you'll see Higelin make the move down the inside. And it's the slightest of contacts. Higelin goes round from this one. There it is, the rotation of the car. And Østgaard ends up in the wall, whereas Higelin, luckily for him, stays out the wall.
Yeah, you are right about that. But, I mean, that chicane, Paul, it's really surprising to me. We've seen, I think that's the 3rd or 4th incident there now that's, someone trying to throw a move up the inside. And that's really strange to me, because that's one of those parts of the racetrack I've never really identified as a braking zone. I know as a driver, it can feel that way. It sort of feels like you have a lot more room to work with on the left-hand side. But whenever you enter that corner and that chicane tight, it just seems like you never maintain any speed off unless you're really, really far alongside. So really interesting to me. We've seen a lot of incidents there today already. We're only 10 minutes into this feature race, and I don't think we've seen a single one of those moves really pan out.
We've lost Marcus Jensen, and it was going into turn 1 at the start of this lap. Oh dear, and hopefully we'll be able to get a replay of that, because Jensen ended up in the wall and he's taken a tour back to the pit lane. So Jensen is out of this one, and here's the replay, Randy, and it's a little bit of a clumsy one, I would say.
I think you're right. Jensen was sort of taking a defensive line, trying to make the move on Castrolato, and he kind of tries to swoop back over to the right-hand side, just as Ricardo, I think, thinking he was a little bit close to the grass, kind of just pulled a little bit to the left. Now what? Move
for fourth place. I'll get it right eventually. And it's Rogers and Benecke, and Rogers is trying to make this move on Max as they go down the back straight away here. They're side by side. Rogers has just got a nose ahead for the moment here. How are they going to be under brakes? Rogers got the inside line, and that's going to be him making the move and making it stick. So Benecke dropping on down to 5th place now in this race, or at the time being. But I tell you what, Rogers, he's trying to make some money moves here.
And he definitely is. He didn't have a great sprint race, and after the invert, put that car quickest in the qualifying
Sedgwick and Kroenke, look at these two. This is about for 2nd place as well. Sorry, Randy, but Sedgwick has made the move. And Martin Kroenke, the Englishman, up into 2nd place there. Great move on the exit of turn number 2, and he's managed to keep it ahead of Kroenke. Now Rogers straight away looking to try and make moves on his Coanda stablemate.
So now Jack, the spirit of NX Racing, trying to open up the gap from the couple of Coanda cars and at least break up that Coanda party on the podium just a little bit. But he has still a very talented driver, Martin Kroenke, that he's just shuffled to 3rd. And of course, the charging Joshua Rogers he's going to have to deal with. And oh yeah, by the way, a recovering number 11 car of Max Benecke. So still a trio behind him that's going to be very fierce and very aggressive. Here's Rogers is going to take a peek on his teammate up into the hairpin. And I think Martin maybe facilitated that pass a little bit. 92 of Rogers filters into 3rd.
Yeah, so there you go. Rogers up into 3rd, as you mentioned there. Kroenke is still in trying to use a slipstream, or what little slipstream there is here today. They'll be running quite low rear wings settings here in this race because, of course, you've got to have the high speed. It's quite a high-speed track as this one, to be fair, just with these slow chicanes, and not the best exit for the number 5 of Kroenke. And here comes Beneke then. We're on board, looking, trying to make the move down the inside then. Late lunge. Will he make the corner? Well, he made the apex, but it's compromised him for the right-hander. And Graham Carroll is trying to make the most of this one as well as the exit. That hairpin. But these drivers, the gloves are off here. Everybody's pushing hard, and Rogers has caught right up to Cedric already.
Yeah, he has, and that Josh is really, really quick at the moment. Into the second chicane. Nothing going to happen here. I think Josh knows he has the pace on Jack, and he should be patient here because I don't think there's any hope in the world of him catching that number 24 car, who, oh, by the way, has opened up a 3.2 second lead into the third chicane. Let's see if the 92 thinks about a pass. Answer is going to be no. They'll go single file through this quick right-left as they run towards the hairpin. Josh should set him up coming out of the hairpin, and going into, I think, the final chicane is where the move should come through, but Josh may get creative here and throw it at the inside. Nope, not going to do it. Let's see if he picks up the run. As a slight mistake from Jack, and that opens the door for the Australian, and another mistake on exit.
Yeah, big contact there between the two of them, and Josh has to get out of it, and that's going to compromise him all the way down the straight here, because here comes Kroenke now. The question is he going to stay behind? Well, they're coming up alongside each other. I don't think Martin's going to quite know. He's going to bleed out of that one, and Beneke sniffing as well. So it was a little error from Jack under braking into that hairpin, just cost him that line, and fortunately enough for him, a little bit of contact and they were able to stay in Glen. But here comes Beneke now, trying to make the move once again on Kroenke down the inside. Carroll wants to be there, and that's exactly what Graham was trying to do. Take advantage of it. Beneke getting on the power, a little bit of a rub there, but Graham Carroll makes it through. Here's Jamie Flint now trying to take advantage of it, and behind them as well as Nils Koch. So great action through this field, and we're almost at the halfway point of this race.
It was a bit of a bumper run there from Graham, but I think the move was clean. I think one of the points you need to sort of develop if you're going to do this sort of racing is being able to get into the back of someone and move them and not necessarily send them. I think that was on from Graham as Josh Rogers pounding Jack Cedric. He had two wheels off on the right-hand side in the grass just a moment ago, and he's all over the back of the 10 car. The move is going to happen, but when? I think this time into the hairpin, and Jack's going to open up the door on the left-hand side, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the Coanda Sinsport driver easily cycle into second, as Jack is probably going to facilitate this pass knowing the jig is up.
Yeah, he didn't need to crowbar his way in. It was the door was just left ajar there for him, and he's through. But Cedric isn't giving this one up. He gets the better run out the hairpin, and Rogers is going to have to go defensive here as they head on in to the final chicane here on the course. But Cedric, he realises he's not got the line for that one, so goes through. And Rogers, great run through that final chicane, and Cedric still in third place. It's been a good outing for him this weekend so far, and Jack really showing he's really sort of matured as a driver as well, and it's great to see him up there challenging. But now he's got the pressure of a multiple-time world champion behind him in Martin Kroenke. We'll look further back as well. There's action all the way through the field, but Cedric coming under pressure here from Martin Kroenke.
Yeah, he definitely has, and I think that 92 car has sort of been the class of the field all day in terms of raw pace, but I don't think there's much of a pace differential between Jack Cedric and this train of cars behind him. So while it's definitely a big name to have pressuring you in the rearview mirror, I think for Cedric it should be a little bit more stable than it was trying to hold off Josh Rogers, who is, I mean, look at the gap he's already been able to open up. He's now going to try to somehow, some way reel in his teammate Mitchell de Jong in these last few seconds. You see everyone still hopping the curbs in these cars, and Jack has already actually started stretching the gap a little bit over Martin and all the cars behind.
As Greg Carroll making a move to the inside of Kroenke. Side to side contact between the two of them. Graham did miss the apex just that little bit, and that allows Max Benecke to make the move as well. So Carroll, he's making him some moves. Up into 4th place is the Scotsman, but now Benecke and Kroenke. How often have we seen those two battling with Graham Carroll in championships in past? But those three together once again through the chicane. A little bit of compromised run through there, and just behind him, Nils Koch is going side by side with Jamie Fluke, as here comes Benecke now on Graham Carroll in front of them as well into that first chicane. Can they make it work? Graham Carroll keeps that position for the time being.
We saw Max struggle getting on the power a little bit early in this race, able to keep it hooked up. I will say, I don't think that move from Graham at the hairpin was on. Martin really gave him a full run, a full lane on the inside there when Graham made that pass, and Graham basically went through that inside lane and up into the Quanta Sinsport car. Martin really didn't pinch him at all, so that 21 car, maybe a bit of roughhousing there with the VRS Quanta Sinsport driver of Martin Kroenke, but now he's got to hold off the Pure Racing Team driver of Max Benecke, and of course Martin's still very much a part of this battle, but of course I think I'm worried a little bit about damage with that 5 car though, Paul, because that sort of contact with Graham's car was right at the right front suspension, which is where these cars can easily get some damage, maybe bend the steering, and it could make for a stressful 13 minutes for Kroenke for the rest of this race.
As we look back from Graham Carroll's car now into the hairpin, look at that sight of Benecke getting closer and closer as they go through the apex of the hairpin out of the corner once again. All this battling has meant that Jack Sedgwick has been able to pull out a 1.6 second gap over this battle for 4th place. So this is just absolutely crazy. As Graham Carroll actually allows Benecke back through, or at least Benecke had the run to get through, so Carroll wasn't going to fight that one too hard, and Benecke up into 4th place in the race now, and Carroll charging hard, but it's worth pointing out, last lap Josh Rogers was half a second faster than your race leader.
And he's got enough time to, I think, reel in his teammate here. He's sort of in the window. If he can do that 4 to 5 tenths per lap quicker every single trip around the racetrack, Josh has the pace to just about catch Mitchell. Will he be able to make a move? That, of course, remains to be seen here, as we're still keeping an eye on this big train of cars. Right now looking at the 92 car. And you see that the last couple laps, nearly 7 tenths of a second been reeled in between those top two. So Josh is a man on the mission at the moment. It'd be a wonderful drive if he could do that, Paul. Coming from 9th on the grid, the sort of advantage that Mitchell had, if Josh can reel that in, even if he doesn't win this race, if he just gets the tail of Mitchell, it'd probably be, potentially the drive of the season thus far.
That I tell you what, that is it's one heck of achievement if he does manage to do that here in this race, as still they carry on battling throughout the field, and it's great to see that we've still got 29 cars in this race. Retirement so far: Gregor Hooton, Marcus Jensen, Patrick Holtzman, Marin Sherlock and Enzo Benito. We saw that spectacular one at the start of the race, but still battling going on throughout this field, and these drivers now, they're in that queue. And is this a case of just biding your time here? We've got 10.5 minutes remaining in this race, Randy. Are you just maybe waiting and thinking of maybe the opportunity of one more position?
Yeah, I mean, you probably will here, especially if you're in one of those spots trying to run for a little bit of cash. You're probably going to be thinking to yourself, maybe I can finish 3rd to stick some money in my pocket. If you're Max Benecke, you're probably going to really try and charge to catch that number 10 car of Jack Sedgwick, especially because he's a relatively reasonable 1.7 seconds up the racetrack, not really completely out of reach, I would say. That trip around the racetrack, though, once again, Josh Rogers half-second quicker than Mitchell de Jong, so he's maintaining this pace. Is the 2nd place runner of Josh Rogers, and still reeling in that number 24 car, and I think more than an acceptable pace to be able to catch him and hopefully make a move.
It's going to be interesting to see how this one pans out, but Josh is on a mission today. Oh, he brushes the wall there. I believe that was your race leader doing that, was that? Oh, no, it was Josh Rogers. So he's pushing it to the limit. Graham Carroll, slow down penalty. And look at that, it's taken him from 5th place down to 10th. And he's under pressure now. He's got to move at the inside, and 2 teammates get into each other. And Marty Piatella ends up half around there. Not the best thing you want to see from past Gilles, he was desperate to take advantage of it and maybe went in a little bit too hot.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that was somewhat also compounded on the car ahead. It was Alejandro Sanchez didn't quite get a good run going into the hairpin, and I think that's what caused Marty to check up just a little bit. There's also contact ahead of them between the 49 and the 33, and I think that just sort of stacked up that pack, and Pat was trying to make the move, and he ends up getting into his teammate because of it. So drama there between the teammates, and wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of discussion between the Coanda drivers after that one.
Keep you up to date, another half a second caught up by Josh Rogers on the race leader, so he's still got an opportunity of that race lead battle going to happen. Your top 8 on screen then: De Jong, Rogers, Sedgwick in a really good third place there, but he is getting caught by Max Benecke in 4th, Martin Kroenke 5th, with Jamie Fleet right behind him in 6th, Niels Kush in 7th, and Alejandro Sanchez putting it under intense pressure in 8th place. So these drivers, they're all fighting it out, they're all desperate to try and make the most of their opportunity to get as many points in this second race. Of course, the points are doubled in this second race, and oh yeah, by the way, the top 3, they get prize fund, $1,000 for the race winner, $400 for the second place, and $200 for third. So Josh, he's seeing dollar signs in front of him at the moment as we look at Alexander Thebe and Kevin Ellis Jr. This is 11th and 12th place.
Yeah, these two very close right now. Thebe, I don't think he's going to be close enough to make a move in towards the champions chicane, but going to be keeping up the pressure here inside of these final 7 minutes. They hit the brakes and do a quick flick to the right, quick flick to the left. We did a little bit of an impression of our rallycross cars that we have on the surface, the way they, the way they launch over those curves. You see in the background a couple of cars really sending it over. The way these guys really send these things over those curves. But man, this fight up front is still reeling in. Josh, 6/10 quicker that trip through. I'm just keeping an eye on that lap on lap on lap, that fight between the top 2. That 92 car is absolutely hooked up.
It's hooked up. It's also got little bits of damage as well, so considering he's got that little bit of front end damage as well, that'll be hampering him slightly in terms of top speed, but still, this is a tremendous effort from the Australian to charge down and catch up to the American driver Mitchell de Jong as he launches it over the curbs there, once again using every single inch of the track that's available to them. Cedric, though, is coming under a little bit of pressure, a second between him and Max Benecke at the moment. You can see the gap to the leader, 6.6 seconds. That's just crazy how those two have been able to pull out at the front there, but let's keep an eye on everything that's happening in this one to see what happens towards the end. Of course, we're into the final 6 minutes of this race here. Time is starting to run out for these drivers, so they need to start thinking about, if they feel that they're quicker than the driver in front of them, they need to start making moves now, Randy.
You're definitely right, but at the same time, I'm always a big proponent of making sure you get to the end of these races. We've seen a couple of your championship contenders, what can happen if things go wrong and how quickly things can change. You always want to get as many points as you possibly can, but there's no point to go out there and risk something somewhat unnecessarily. What do you got?
Look at that lap time from Josh Rogers compared to his teammate last lap. 0.8 of a second, best of calling it. It's 7.5 tenths. Okay, quicker than his teammate on that last lap. 1.2 seconds is the gap now. This lead battle is going to be on going into the final couple of laps here, Andy.
Yeah, you're right about that one, as Josh is going to be on him pretty much at the end of this lap, I would imagine, and that's going to give him about 2 to 3 laps to fight for this race win and the $1,000 you have going up top. A little bit tight with Josh around that exit of the chicane. I don't think he collected a slowdown, so that was pretty much the perfect run through there. So now you're going to have the 24 car of Mitchell de Jong maybe not having full pace here, trying to hold off a teammate. And as pacey as Josh is right now, Paul, I wouldn't be surprised as well if Mitchell maybe sort of facilitates the pass and works with him just a little bit, because that's a huge margin that Josh has brought back down and in not a long period of time. And of course, these two being teammates, I don't think they're going to risk it with one another, with them both being very relevant in this championship.
Well, that gap now is under a second, and Josh Rogers, look at him launching it through the chicane. He carries so much speed through that, across the line again. This time 35.9 compared to a 35.2 yet again. The consistency from Josh Rogers with these lap times is incredible. He's a man on form at the moment, and he seems to be the king of GT racing for the time being. Through the first chicane they go. Really, time is running out now, just under 4 minutes remaining in this race. Has Mitchell de Jong been looking after his tyres just that little bit to give him that little bit extra towards the end of the race? Well, you would have thought when he was getting within 2 seconds he would have picked up the pace if that was the case. So really, I think this is Mitchell at his fastest at the moment. The fastest lap that de Jong had done in the race is a 35.4 compared to a 35.0 for the outright fastest lap of Josh Rogers, which by the way was set whilst he was working his way through the field into that second place, into the hairpin now. Time ticking away. I believe we've got about 3 laps. It's going to be a push, but now Rogers is right there with de Jong. 0.3 of a second between them, and de Jong feels the need to try and break that toe here.
And this is good to see. That tells me they're going to race for it if Mitchell's going to try and break the toe like that. Braking zone up towards the final chicane. Josh pulls out, but he immediately gets back in the line. 2 laps to go here as they work the chicane. Do either of them make a mistake? No, of course not. Right up against the outside wall. And look at the run for that 92 car. Josh is going to go defensive on the inside line as they head into one for the penultimate time, side by side for the race lead. And Josh, or excuse me, oh, Mitchell is going to make a mistake, and he may have a slowdown from there, and Josh is going to take the race lead.
The both of them making mistakes into turn 1. Both of them seem to get away with it as well, but it's Rogers into the lead of the feature race of the Porsche Esports Supercup. Fantastic drive from Josh to start where he did in 9th place to get it into the lead as we're heading towards the end of this one, and there is absolutely nothing that Mitchell de Jong can do here. But what a move and what a pressure was put on de Jong there. As we look at the replay here, it's on the brakes. Both of them braked as late as they both dare. De Jong getting it more wrong than Rogers, and Rogers was able to get that cutback and make it work there, Andy.
Yeah, fantastic move there from the 92 of Josh Rogers, and I think the jig's up. I don't think there's any way Mitchell's going to be able to fight back unless that 92 car makes a mistake.
3rd place is under pressure now. Sedgwick cannot. He's got to try and hold on for another couple of laps. Get it slow on the exit there to make Beneke just hang back that little bit on the throttle. That's good driving from Sedgwick there to really try and work defensively, but he's under pressure now. So this is the final step of the podium. This is $200 that they're both fighting for, and look at the speed that Beneke has compared to Sedgwick. I think Sedgwick has maybe got a slightly higher downforce setting compared to Beneke. Out the final chicane they go. The white flag will be in the air for this lap, and it's going to be the final lap then. Side by side into turn number 1. Sedgwick, he's got the outside line now, so Beneke able to hold the inside, and that's a change of position for your podium. Sedgwick unable to hold on to it for the time being. Trying the cutback here into the first chicane. That doesn't really normally a overtaking position. And that's it. 3rd place for Beneke for the time being, but anything could happen on this final lap. Kroenke, Fluke and Niels Koch behind. They're catching up to these guys while they're battling away, so don't count this one out yet. Alejandro Sanchez down the inside, and that's on the inside of Graham Carroll. Carroll coming under pressure as well from Kevin Ellis Jr. as they come out of that second chicane, heading in towards the 3rd chicane, side by side between the two of them as they're running through underneath the braking zone onto that chicane, and Carroll holds on for the time being. But out at the front then, what an absolutely masterful drive it has been from Joshua Rogers. The Australian started this race in 9th place on the grid, and he has worked his way through the field. Some opportunistic moves, but also some brilliant, breathtaking moves as well. And as we see, flying through the chicane on the final lap, he can see the checkered flag here, and it's going to be the first double feature race winner in the Porsche Esports Super Cup, and his name is Joshua Rogers. Brilliant result from Joshua there to get that win in the end of this feature race. We've still got battling across the line, and it's involving Graham Carroll, but he's not going to be able to get ahead as they go across the line there. But what a breathtaking race there, Randy. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's potentially just drive of the season right there from that number 92 car of Josh Rogers. Starts 9th on the grid in a 30-minute sprint, able to work his way through those first 7 cars. And then he sees what was the gap at one point? I think it was about 4 seconds.
4.5
for Josh. Yeah, 4.5 seconds, and he just starts reeling him in like it's an absolute cakewalk. That 92 car of Josh Rogers. Mitchell DeYoung comes home in the 2nd spot. He needs to be happy with that. But for Josh, we've seen him putting a couple dominant performances at Bathurst in the Endurance Championship. I have a feeling that driver of the 92 car is just comfortable right up against the walls with the pace he showed here today.
Yeah, absolutely. What a drive there. What a fantastic result. And hopefully we'll be able to bring you the results of that race, because it was brilliant. A fantastic racing here from the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And there you go, race winner Joshua Rogers, 0.6 of a second ahead of the American Mitchell DeYoung in 2nd place. Maximilian Bedeque on that end towards the end of the race there, rounding out your podium in 3rd place. Jack Sedgwick, a really good strong week from him this week, rounding out in 4th place. Martin Kroenke in 5th ahead of Jamie Fluke, the Apex Racing Team driver, in 6th. Niels Koch 7th ahead of Paschalis Georgis, the Greek driver, in 8th. Alejandro Sanchez in 9th, with Graham Carroll rounding out the top 10. Pretty close action between them across the line, along with Kevin Ellis Jr. as well in 11th. Alexander Thebe 12th at the end of that one, and then David Williams, not been the best of weeks for him here, in 13th ahead of Thomas Tahala. Marty Piatella, Jeremy Butler, Bobby Zelensky in 17th. Just really didn't seem to get the hang of this car around this track. Ricardo Castrolina and Moritz Lerner were pretty close together at the end there in 18th, 19th, and Sebastian Dunkel rounding out the top 20. And as we move through your field even more, Sebastian Job, it was really a case of trying to make the most of a bad situation for him. 21st in the end for the Brit. Lauren Heinrich and David Navakovsky had issues in the races as well. Ilka Harpala had a terrible time today with Yao Vaz. Antoine Hijlan we saw getting involved in an incident earlier on at the 2nd chicane. Kamal Franchek 27th with Tommy Erstgaard. Of course, Tommy Erstgaard, race winner from last time out, down in 28th. Dion Vergers, the last of your lead lap runners, and then all the retirements after that. Look at that, Gregor Hutu, the Finnish driver, Marcus Jensen, Patrick Holtzman, who came into this week as 2nd place in the championship, Enzo Bonito, and Marin Chola rounds out those drivers who did not finish. But wow, what a time it was, what a race it was, and well, let's get straight on into the interviews then. And it'll be great to say hello to a man who finished in 2nd place here, and he's standing by with Randy Cheney.
Yeah, normally we'd kick it off with his teammate with the win, but Josh is busy out there sending it. Mitchell, what a run from you. I mean, you qualified well. You had a pretty decent, I'd say, sprint race, working your way kind of comfortably up to a nice starting spot. And then I'm sure with about 10 minutes left, you probably thought you had this thing in the bag before the 92, your teammate, just started charging you down.
Yeah, it was quite an up and down race. In qualifying, man, that was such a failure, to be honest. I really lucked into that front row starting spot. So, this is one of the times where the format really worked in my favor. So, yeah, happy to have some clean races there. A good one in the sprint race. I noticed once kind of Max and Martin and the main race had their issues, I kind of just turned off all timing and everything like that just to try to focus and not to make any mistakes. But Yeah, this is such a tricky track. With these kinds of cars, I'm sure everyone has noticed that you really leap the car off these big anti-cut curbs. So the only issue with that is it's very easy to slow down penalty. So with that said, I took the race way too easy. Kind of after the midpoint, I tried to just get myself into that safe zone, and unfortunately, when you sometimes put yourself in that, you get yourself out of the rhythm, and that's exactly what I did. So I still had timing off all the way until the end, but I could see Josh coming. So yeah, just tried to manage it the best I could. But shoot, if the race was a couple laps shorter, would have been nice to get that win.
And you talk about those big anti-cup curbs. You're one of the drivers in this championship who's driven around this place in World Championship competition now, both in this Porsche Cup car as well as the higher downforce F1 car we used to run at one point. How different it is getting around this place, whereas in the, you're carrying so much more speed, of course, in the open wheeler that, you kind of are half avoiding all those anti-cup curbs not to maybe pop the suspension or really upset the car, whereas in this you're basically getting almost the full height of the car, one side or the other of the tires up off the ground.
Yeah, it's very tricky. To be honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to finish this race. It's that hard to do right, and you have someone like Josh who is used to this stuff with some of the V8 supercar stuff in the past. It's really hard to keep up with that, and there's very specific ways to hit it just right where it doesn't affect you too much, and it's relatively doable in practice, but way more difficult in the race when you have the risk of getting a 3-second slowdown penalty and completely ruining your race. So it's one of those things, and Josh did the best job today, so hats off to him for sure.
It's a pair of Canadian circuits back to back. Of course, this one, pretty much flat and right up against the wall. You go to Mosport and you don't really have any walls to worry about, but a lot more hills, a lot more undulation, and of course, a number of areas where the grassy areas can really upset the car. Turn 2 is definitely a part of the track that really comes to mind there. As we head towards Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, what's the sort of thought process there of how you guys, basically yourself and everyone that you work with at VRS Cranston Sport can do?
Yeah, it'll be another interesting one. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a great track for passing. So it's going to be very important to start well and not make any mistakes. So, I think we are pretty on top of the car. I'm not too worried about that. So, it'll just be a matter of getting up to speed. It's quite a straightforward track, too. So racing should be really, really close. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for sure.
Who all's on that number 24 car that gets it done for you?
Yeah, of course, thanks to all our teammates for prepping this week and getting everything together. I want to thank also Josh for helping me a lot this week with my driving early in the week, getting helping me to understand kind of how we take the curves. And also all our partners, of course, Virtual Racing School, VTech, SimQuip, and Run Design, Joe Real Timing, and of course you guys for putting on the broadcast for us.
Well, there he was, second place finisher Mitchell de Jong, driver of the number 24 car. I think he's going to be happy with second, but maybe not totally. But one driver who should feel fully satisfied with himself now stood by with Mr. Paul Smith, and that's Josh Rogers.
Yeah, feature race winner, the first double feature race winner there. Joshua Rogers, talk us through that day, because it was a relatively quiet day for you behind the wheel, wasn't it?
I wouldn't say that so much. Yeah, it was quite a hectic night, really. Obviously, qualifying went really, really well, and Heat 1 was a little bit challenging. Being back in the pack at this track as well, it's so tight and you're crammed between the walls. So
I was going to ask about the heat race there, because we saw how you were maybe not able to make moves that you would have wanted to have done, and made up as many positions as you wanted to have done in that one, and involved in a little incident as well in that race as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, apologies to Sebi on that one. I'm not sure. I think we were running a little bit more downforce than others in that one, so obviously it made it quite difficult. We didn't change the setup between races, so it was the same for both. But our only really real opportunities were into those tight corners, whereas you've got that big long straight that you would have liked to be able to take advantage of, but unfortunately we couldn't. So sometimes you had to try and pull off some risky moves, and obviously that one didn't pay off. But at the end of the day, I think all things considered, the feature couldn't have gone much better. I think I was in a much better mindset for that race. I think my head was kind of all over the place after qualifying for the first race, too stressed out, I guess. And I kind of just put it all behind me for that feature and tried to hang it out as much as I could, being as risky as I possibly could be on the curbs, being as close as I could to a slowdown. I knew that was where the time was going to be in that race. Normally in a tin top car like this around Montreal, you'll drive 95% throughout the race to make sure you don't get those slowdowns, because it's really risky. But for me, I think that one I was kind of driving 115%. I really wanted it, and as soon as I got past Jack, I guess the target was clear in my eyes, and obviously we got it done into turn one. But all things considered, though, brilliant race from Mitchell. To be able to get to the lead or pull away like he did from the pack was seriously impressive. So congrats to him. So
yeah, just before we let you go though, because that was an awesome drive in that second race, it has to be said. More sport next time out. What are your thoughts on that track?
Lots of high-speed corners, not so many tight ones, so it's again going to be challenging to pass. The back straight can provide some really, really good draft, and sometimes you can pull off maybe an outside move into the corner at the end of the straight there, because obviously that sector you've got a right, a left, and a right, so you can kind of position yourself so you can get the perfect line for the following corner. Kind of having to set up passes at that track, so it's going to be challenging, but we'll see where we end up for that one, and give it our best as always.
And before we let you go, I know your teammate has already mentioned them, but who gets it done for your team?
Again, massive thank you to everyone who put in all the effort this week at Coanda. It's not something that we can do with a couple people. Everyone really chips in, everyone pulls together, and I think we've really got the car sorted, which is brilliant to see. Also, massive thanks to all our partners, Virtual Racing School and the VRS Direct Force Pro, obviously on board with me. Again, brilliant this race that wheel. Also, thanks to VTech, SimQuip, End-to-End Design, JRT, also you guys for the broadcast, and look forward to chatting to you, or hopefully chatting to you next time.
Well, congratulations. That was a really, really good drive in that second race. Well done, and all the best for next time out. And, Randy, standing by with our third podium visitor, Maximilian Benecke.
Yeah, the non-Coanda representative here on the podium. Max, you look at the results for the races, and it seems like you had a relatively quiet day. Started in fourth in the first race, finished second. Started second in the second race, finished third. That would normally identify a bunch of action, but man, that a number 11 Pure Racing Team car was in the thick of it all day long, and then that was a stressful 45 minutes of racing for you. Tell me about it.
Absolutely, yeah. First, I'm glad to be here for the first time in the Porsche Esports Supercup. Had the chance already to be here, but unfortunately it didn't happen. So finally the day came. It was an interesting race. Obviously the first race was quite smooth. Just had a small overtake on Martin there, which gave me second position. So I thought, maybe you have the shot on P1 in the second race. And then just stupid me. I did a small mistake. First chicane, I think second, third, fourth lap, which got me a slowdown. And obviously, if the race is still in the early stages, you get a big slowdown, so you have to slow down a lot. That's what I did. So I had to let two people pass, and then everything was just about the recovery. And I never thought I could finish third in the end, but I'm glad I made it. Obviously, nice fights, definitely made a lot of fun. I'm also quite happy that there was no bigger incident because of that. But just happy to be here. It was an interesting race. I was sweating all the time. But a lot of fun.
And talking, of course, about the slowdowns, I mean, it seems to have been a really unique factor of this track. Are we going to see that really factor in throughout the rest of the championship, or is that going to be pretty much just a Montreal thing? Because looking at the bulk of the schedule, there doesn't seem to be too many tracks that pop up where that's really too much of a problem.
Yeah, that's just about Montreal. You also have this sometimes on Monza, but Montreal is definitely the track where you have the most slowdowns. It's just because you have to cut the corners so much to just gain time compared to your competitors. So you already go on the grass, you already go more on the curb than you should normally go. And yeah, that's the problem. And one time, if you just push too hard, if you go that 1 centimeter too far to the right or to the left, then you have the slowdown penalty. So the margin between having to slow down for 3-4 seconds and just going through is quite small.
Well, thanks for joining us, Max, and congratulations again, and thank you as well for putting on such an amazing show for us to watch. We spent a lot of time with the cameras pointed at that blue and white number 11 car. And before we let you go, who gets it done for the number 11 Pure Racing Team machine?
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, then you already saw our sponsors, which is iRacing, Spuso Autos, Wallmeyer, and obviously thanks to the people I practice with, especially Alex. I think we had a good setup this time, and hopefully going on with that the rest of the season.
Well, there you was, your podium finisher, your final podium finisher here today. Paul, back over to you.
Well, yeah, so there we go. That's all the interviews done, and just a very, very brief then. What are your final thoughts, Randy, of that of those two races?
Well, this is, of course, my first broadcast experience with this championship, and it was a lot of fun. And I don't know if I could have picked a better track to sort of come in as a one-off. I think very, very tight racing. I love these sorts of circuits and these sorts of cars. Really have to get physical, and we saw that today. Saw a couple big incidents, but I don't think there was anything really too questionable about most of them. Most people just kind of making genuine, honest mistakes. But I think, what we saw from Josh Rogers today could very well be, we're still in the first half of the championship, but that may have been drive of the championship material there in that feature race, coming from that deep in the field and having that much of a gap to have to rein in on Mitchell, and being able to do it and then make the pass with a lap to work with before you ever get to the end of the race was an absolutely mega drive. And complete congratulations to Josh for that.
Well, there we go. That's the end of our coverage here in the Porsche Esports Supercup broadcast here on iRacing Esports Network. Coverage brought to you by Racebot TV. I've been Paul Smith. Randy Cheneth has been joining me for this one. Thank you to Hugo Lewis as well for covering the camera work, and Istvan Bolo, trackcams22.com for the camera pack here. But what a drive from Joshua Rogers, our first double feature race winner. We'll see you next time out at Canadian Time or Spot. Goodbye.